Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام. الحمد لله ورحمة الله وبركاته.
How is everyone?
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamu
We're
alaikum. This is
we're
this is the presenter, Bobby Hamid.
all right,
Uh,
my brother.
I apologize. I was over in the last link you sent me. It sent me to some kind of Google meeting. So I've been sitting in that room, and I said, wait a minute, let me go back to the earlier link, which was Zoom. So
Hmm.
I'm here.
Yeah, I wonder if the Google Meet you got was some type of a calendar reminder. That
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's possible that that was a calendar reminder somehow, because I know that both my Google Calendar and my ICS, my calendar with Apple, they'll record the same event, and sometimes I'll get both
Okay.
reminders on there.
That
And I
that would help.
apologize for that in your case.
Okay.
I want to wait for Imam Bia, especially who invited you to join
Okay.
us. We'll give him a few minutes to join, and then we will get started. But welcome. Thank you for
Thank you for
coming on
consideration.
with us. This is great. I've been looking forward to this for some time.
Okay, I gotta get my camera going. Let's see. You can hear me, but you can't see me, correct?
Well, I see a representation of you. It's like a little digital representation, and now it has disappeared, and now it's back. So I don't see
Okay.
you. It's waiting for you to appear. It's place holding for you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Adam.
Walaikum assalam.
Um,
So I see your picture.
Yes,
It's
sir.
now place holding for you. And I was talking to brother Imam Hamid. He's trying to get his camera to work, and he's got his picture up as a representation, I think.
Yeah.
so
No,
I
okay.
typically don't have this issue with camera, and I tested everything beforehand. So uh, any recommendations here? I can, let's see. Let me unblur the background. I don't think that has anything on bearing on this. Camera should be functioning. It says fail to start the video camera. Please select another video camera setting.
I can you
Um,
turn his mic up? I can barely hear him.
I can. I don't have the ability to turn that his volume up.
Oh,
um, I don't know if that helps at all.
yes, better.
Okay, all right. So that was on my end. Let me see, can we get the video going here? Uh-huh. I may be still on that other link. I'm gonna do something real quick here.
Okay.
I may need to get out of that meeting room. I didn't close it out, so give me just a
Okay.
moment.
No
Okay.
problem. So for those on the line who don't know, lost a really good brother here in Dallas yesterday. Imam Muhammad Samad transitioned yesterday, and he was one of the most excellent Muslims I think I've known since I came into the community. Just incredibly tireless worker, both working within the masjid and then working with inmates, former inmates, and reentry programs. In fact, donated one of his own houses as a halfway house for brothers coming out and helping them find jobs. And most of these were brothers who had proclaimed Islam in the penitentiary coming out, and he tried to give them guidance, give them a job, money, food to eat, obviously a place to stay. And many times I worked with him here locally with preschool giveaway, the backpacks and different things like that. Work with him with ICNA and a lot of different things of getting food to people. Just a really good brother. Came in the first and then transitioned with Imam W.D. Muhammad. So he definitely will be missed here. That is for sure. Assalamu alaikum, my brother. I see you.
Walaikum assalam.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I believe you can't be in that other Google meeting and have that camera there and try to come over to a Google the Zoom and also
Okay.
it operate for us there.
Well, fantastic. Now that you are here visibly, Imam Bia is here. I'm going to ask Imam Adam Bia to open this up with the dua.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Ameen. So once again, welcome, Imam Hamid. It is a great pleasure to have you here with us in Collective Conversations. Adam had mentioned you to us probably a month ago or maybe more, and I almost feel like we're negligent in getting you here, but I appreciate that it has finally happened. And I want to turn the early part of this evening over to Adam. Adam, if you will give a truly quality introduction to Imam Hamid, and we can proceed from there.
Alhamdulillah. Yes. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum salam.
I've known Imam Hamid since the early ages when I first moved to Fayetteville. And he was part of our community, young brother at the time. And he was very energetic, very helpful, volunteered to help when he could. It's something we're trying to develop right now. So, brother Imam, if you go back to those early days, then that'll give you an insight into what we got today. That's a side note to our community, what we're trying to develop. But he helped out. He later on became a treasurer. Again, trying to help out. And Imam Hamid he worked for the county education to the inmates. Is that right, Brother Imam?
Yeah. So I was an educator, instructor,
Yeah.
instructor for inmates.
And then he segued over to the county, and he worked in the housing. Worked there in the mid, I'll say right around 2000 and probably was around 2000. I don't know the exact date, but he became a resident imam at the masjid, and he's been serving in that capacity since that time. But professionally, he was a contractor. He's built houses. He's did a lot in that regard, and he also was the construction person when we built our masjid. on Murchison Road. He oversaw that project, and the proof of what that is our master is now standing, and we're up and running and trying to continue to be a blessing on our community. So that's a real quick synopsis. Married father, has two sons. I don't know if he had any grandchildren coming yet or not, but I guess that'll be soon, right? So that's a good, rather than reading from script, that's a personal recollection of the brother. And I hope that's fitting enough for him, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
That was fantastic. Imam Hamid, the floor is yours.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about what's kind of going on in your life, both professionally outside of the masjid, and how you view masjid life, the community life, as it's going on there in Fayetteville as well.
Yes. So I appreciate Adam's introduction, and of course, I was under the tutelage of it as a young brother coming along. Imam Biat was there. He was a good advisor. He's always been a good brother, good advisor. Learned a lot from him, and I let him know I appreciate those years of development where sometimes I felt like I was in the trenches with him. It was a struggle at times, but we still here. So professionally, as Adam Man Biat stated, I worked with the county for 25 years. First 8 years were with the sheriff's department. I was a sworn deputy, but because of my educational background, I really got I would call it a position of being an educator, because you had to meet the college degree requirements to be under the local technical college's instructor. As an instructor, you had to have a 4-year degree. So just prior to going off to BLET, basic law enforcement, they called me down to the chief's office and the sheriff's office and said, "You have a degree. We noticed we're getting ready to start a program." So that degree was a blessing to be able to not have to chase bad guys, but to work in an environment in the jail helping inmates. So I did that for 8 years, and they started a new department called community development. So some of y'all may be aware of community development block grants. It's one big pot of federal funds that come down to local cities and towns. There's also one called Home Investment Partnership. It's another big lump sum of money that's appropriation through housing, we say housing urban development. So those funds will come to local communities, and we decided to create a department. And I was just fed up almost about that time with working in the jail. I enjoy what I was doing, but the correctional and jail environment can be quite a challenge. So having a background in construction, and I went and applied to be in the community development department, and I was hired and ultimately served as the housing services manager, administrating the funds that were put out by that community development department for a variety of housing activities, public-private partnership, multifamily development, special needs housing, people with with AIDS, HIV, veterans, transitional, you name it, we did it. And we funded local organizations, developers, nonprofit and for-profit developers, and sometimes a partnership between those people to expend those funds for a variety of housing activities. So I guess I would say that's sort of my background, but I'm still working in the realm of housing. Primarily, I'm slowing down in construction, but I'm actually doing a little bit more consulting, and I do something called land loss prevention, which is really special niche that I really enjoy presenting on land loss prevention. We're not here tonight for that, but land loss prevention is a real need for us as African Americans and just people in general. But I do some consulting work. I have some credentials from inspection and as Adam stated, general contract. So I for years I was given a cookbook every Friday, and ask some of our, I'm fortunate to be in an imam who has three prior resident imams that sit on the floor on Friday. That's unusual for us. And I get some help from them in terms of a couple of Fridays each month, really looking to devote some time and attention to expanding our campus. We have a masjid, but we have a visual plan, really a rendering of housing, commercial, educational buildings and edifices on our little bit over four, I think 4.1 acre site, really about 2 or 3 miles from downtown Fayetteville, North Carolina. So we see nothing but opportunity, pull together, plan and strategize and further develop and build out the campus around our masjid. So that ties us back into the second part about the masjid and where we are. But we're a thriving community. We're small, but we're very influential. I would say people like Adam have been part and parcel to that. And even in my own, the chief of police, the mayor, people like that are personal friends. They're just not our leaders. I'm sure Adam, he'll tell you that he can talk to the mayor. He can talk, ex chief of police, sheriff. All these people are friends. I have them in my phone. I'm sure Adam does as well. And we can call them, and we exercise, I think, a good deal of clout and respect in our community.
Well, let's talk about housing a little bit. Because you have been both a builder and you work around the housing industry as a consultant and also as an inspector. And we have a sizable housing, what one of our friends, Omar, likes to call attainable housing issues in the United States. And there's no region of the country that I found that is not experiencing that particular problem. And it seems like if you read the data, I mean, I was just reading today about San Diego, where my older son lives, that for a single person to buy a home in San Diego, you need to make $278,000 a year.
Yeah.
There aren't that many brothers and sisters in our community, and I'm talking about African Americans as a whole, who are jointly pulling down $278,000 a year. So, attainable housing, and I'm talking about something, a decent grade of housing seems to be something that is slipping through the fingers of a lot of us in this country, a lot of people. Yet, I come across things like the manufactured housing. I come across things like the tiny homes. Don't know how the algorithm finds me, but when I was posting some stuff about my brother that passed today, and on my Facebook page, I see all these tiny house stuff popping up, and some of it looks beautiful. I mean, well decorated, of course. They're going to show you the best. What if any obstacles are in the way of any individual or larger developers really kind of incorporating the manufactured housing, which can be done very quickly, or the tiny homes into some kind of master plan within a municipality to solve all, housing issues?
Okay. So that's a good question. And so I want to pump the brakes just for a minute. So I wanted to be sure, because I wasn't quite certain of whether I was going to give a brief presentation. I think Q&A, we need to really do that, or we want to spend the full time in just questions, Q&A, like you've led into a question. So I do have a few notes that I would maybe kind of set the stage for affordable or obtainable housing. But we can go right to your question, since it's very
No, I
specific.
said table my question until I hope
Okay.
we'll have time at the end, and I would love to hear your presentation.
Okay, I'll cover that. So
Okay.
let's define, you call it obtainable. Traditionally, HUD, it defines it properly, more specifically as affordable housing. And it's a very simple definition for it. It's where the person who purchased the house, and we're not talking about rental housing today. Let's talk about home ownership from that perspective, where you will not or should not pay more than 30% of your gross income for housing costs. So that's housing, that's principal, mortgage, interest, taxes, insurance, uh, and to include utility. So if you really do the math, you don't have to do a lot to see that at 30% of what low income and low wage earners and we call middle or median income, below the median income, whatever percent we want to look, 30, 60, or 80, with salaries and incomes, most people are going to have to be challenged when you're talking 30%. So you take $30,000 salary, you take 30%, what's that, 3,000, 30 times 3. No. Let me continue my presentation. I don't want to get too, and Adam, you're there as the accountant. You help me with the numbers. But let's continue my presentation. I don't want to change the flow of what I'm doing. So it's called being rent burdened when you spend more than that, when you spend more than 30%. Now, recent studies have shown that they report to us that there's a housing shortage. But really more, I think we have to dig deeper into what they're saying when they say we need to develop. They're saying millions, you hear anywhere from 3, 4, 5. I heard 7 million affordable housing units short we are. I think these big investors are really thinking rental housing, but we're talking about home ownership. That's another ball game. And 30%, we're saying that most people, the problem is not units coming online, new units coming online, because we know what they're costing. In most places, you need a new home, single family home. You're $300,000 in some of the low housing markets to well up to what example you gave us in California. $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 to buy new single family home. So a lot of people are going to be rent burden, but the problem is typically now not a shortage of housing, it's rising housing home prices and it's low income earnings. These are really two of the main barriers. It's not so much a housing supply. So that's the real challenge, is low income earnings. So there's some things that the government has actually tried to do to mitigate or to help with that, and it created these programs like I mentioned, block grants and through housing and urban development, other programs that allow people to access assistance through local, state, and government's programs. Oftentimes these monies come down, like in our case, through the community development department of the county and the city. We were entitlement counties, meaning we got an appropriation, we got a share each year. Sometimes if it's a small rural area or not an entitlement, then they get a periodic appropriation every other year, every third year, rotating between, say, maybe some rural areas of the state. But the problem for most people is just affordability. So what we're seeing is that the government through these programs try to help with programs like dedicated monies that set aside, like through state housing trust funds. So state legislators, if it's not federal funds, state legislators will often set aside money to stimulate affordable housing development, housing that's specific for lower income individuals. Oftentimes they're still in the 200,000, even in our area. Those houses come online at 200, 250,000. That's considered low income housing. So you still look at what kind of income is required to even make a mortgage payment with the interest rates today. And we see we're really in a crisis. There are these programs, again, that provide things like down payment assistance. We used to refer to this as DAP, down payment or GAP, that bridge the the cost between what a person's qualifying income is for a mortgage and say what the home price is. And some of these programs will extend in North Carolina. I have to speak generically about them. They're in all 50 states. They're across the country. So I'll mention these programs rather generically because terms, conditions, administration of them, while similar, uh, same goal and objective, they have different criterias. May have different credit scores. They may have different ratios. Some of these loans may allow you for a debt to income ratio at 33%, and others may be 40%. So every municipality, every location is different to stimulate homes where people who have lower incomes, providing down payment assistance and also gap financing for mortgage qualifying amounts, and then a price of increased price of mortgages due to home prices. There are also organizations that exist across the country. We call them community housing development organizations. Most people would refer to them that it would just say housing developers, nonprofit housing developers. We have a couple here in Fayetteville. One is called Kingdom Community Development. We have a couple of others. They get some set asides as a percentage of the home funds or block grants that come in. So they may specialize. You may know some nonprofits sort of specialize in housing versus say public services. They specialize in houses because they're getting a specific set aside money that's for community housing development organizations. So they're really appeal to people who haven't owned, first-time home buyer, and in some cases of people who haven't, in most cases are defined as people who haven't purchased a new home in the last 3 years or ever. Many of these programs, these funds come as, we call them soft second mortgages or deferred mortgages, essentially are what they are. I'm going to try to give you a simple explanation for, say, gap financing or even down payment assistance, where these funds are put into at closing through these various programs that people apply for and become eligible for. And most of this is done through these same organizations, through housing counselors. I used to hold a housing counseling certification in North Carolina, but I haven't worked for the county in about 12 years, so I let that certification lapse. But I do work as a consultant, but not as a counselor in an agency. So these monies are put onto the back end of the primary mortgage or the first position mortgage. So for an example, if a person gets, we work with round numbers, $10,000 of down payment assistance. Let's just say they get a 20-year mortgage. And so 20% of that 10,000, which is $2,000 a year, gets deferred years 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. If a person then pays that mortgage out, doesn't sell that home, at year 20, if they satisfy the principal or primary mortgage, then that second down payment, $10,000, has been deferred at 20% years, the last 5 years, to total to 10 at $2,000 a year. And that money is stamped satisfied, even though they won't pay back a penny. It's been deferred or forgiven, deferred and forgiven. So these are great programs. So anybody who wants to look at home ownership should really investigate through their bank or mortgage company, lenders, any programs that are specifically targeting first-time home buyers. And you can, when we say 3 years, it means you could have owned the home 10 years ago and you've been a renter for 5 years, and now you still qualify because it's been 3 years. So they look at it still as your first-time home buyer. They say 3 years. Couple of things that people should be mindful of in preparing themselves is you got to pay your bills on time. You have to be credit worthy enough that people look at your credit file and it looks like you paid as you terms that you agreed to with your creditor, your debtor. You should try to reduce your debt to income ratio, which is a percentage of the debt, a factor of the debt to your gross income, and it comes out as a percentage. You really want that to be, for example, I think I can give you a clear example of that. If you owe $12,000 of expenses a month and you gross $3,000, you take 12,000 and divide it as a ratio is 40%. I've done the math on this earlier. So what you could take 3,000 times 40%, you'll get 1,200. I mean, you take 40% of 3,000, you get 1,200. So what I'm suggesting is you have to get this as low as possible. The lower your debt to income ratio, which means you don't have a lot of debt, you paid down debt, the more attractive you're going to look to a lender. You should try to build credit references. Sometimes the problem is people just don't have credit reference. They've done things in other people's name, paid bills in other people's names. They don't have a credit reference. And lastly, increasing savings. These are all helpful things to prepare oneself to go in to get a mortgage or through a housing counseling agency, which, by the way, will help you to create manageable budgets. This is what they strive to do. Set realistic spending or financial goals to help to improve the credit score, and they can work on delinquent debt with credit bureaus. So housing counselors, most of these people are getting administrative costs through these grants, so it's free. It's sort of a gratuitous service. Some will charge you an initial small application fee. I think that's more to tie you into your seriousness of the matter. Maybe I know one charges $99 to make an application. Everything that is provided in terms of the housing counseling service after that is gratuitous or free. But I think that $99 is at the door, you're serious. So just a couple other things here, and I'm going to try to answer the question too about some of the issues that we attribute to issue with affordable housing or obtainable housing. So some of those things are real. One of the problems we see across the country is private equity, which are just investors. There's been incidences here really in COVID, coming out of COVID, where they list a house in a neighborhood in Fayetteville. Well, Fayetteville was a little different market, say from Raleigh, North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, Wake County. They list that house and cars would line the street, and private equity investment would be there to put the highest offer in, because their goal is to purchase the house. So it made a lot of houses at various price points or levels unobtainable because the investors. And I got a coin cliche that the corporation is the landlord now in America. They come in 200 homes in a community, they can buy 20 or more. They begin to change the dynamics of that whole area by raising rents, fixing houses up, raising rents, and doing other things. And this is kind of how we enter the situation we are today with private equity. Now, some other things that affect affordable, obtainable housing are local ordinances, building ordinances. And you spoke of something earlier, Edward, that was really popular now. Alternative housing. I want to just list it as alternative housing to include tiny homes. Much of this is really born out of necessity. That people now, I was speaking with a realtor recently. The homes that sell the quickest in our area are from 12 to 1,500 square feet. The homes that are the big, more fancy, elaborate homes, they sit out many more days, often months, because people really, people would conclude, well, people just don't want big houses anymore. The reality is people just simply can't afford big houses anymore with the incomes that they make. So local government if you've ever heard of NIMBY, not in my backyard, a lot of times the local municipalities are setting things in motion that make it difficult to develop neighborhoods of tiny homes, and make it difficult because of their taxation structures or impact fees or public utility impact fee connection fees to tiny homes, and trying to regulate how they're going to build out tiny home communities versus regular standard subdivision communities. So many places, even Fayetteville is trying to model a tiny home policy as we speak after Wake County, Raleigh, North Carolina. We have a tendency here in county government to follow the designs and policies that Wake County, which is our state capital county of Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's still in progress, a tiny home ordinance that would help perhaps with subdivisions They don't even have an ordinance to develop a subdivision of homes. Now, I was in San Antonio last year, and my son lives there, and he showed me some communities with neighborhood paved streets with all of the homes, tiny homes. You can't do that in Cumberland County where we live. They have an ordinance called cottage development, but it's so prohibited. Uh, the zoning officer gave me an example of a person who applied for that cottage development. He was trying to do tiny homes, and the regulations and the regulatory requirements were so stringent that he gave up on that development. So we see government has to play a role in making it such that it's easier to go in now, because the trend is away from traditional big houses, the alternative houses, the tiny homes, and also what we call uh, generically we say tiny homes, but more officially we call it ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They've allowing now, they are allowing in many municipalities, and this is something people are doing. There's a trend now that children don't leave home as readily as they once did. Uh, there's a professor at UNC, University of North Carolina, who does a demographic presentation. His name is James Johnson. You go out of YouTube and look at James Johnson, UNC, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill professor. He talks about this trend toward children. Really, it's like you ask them, you're going to go off to the army. Like when I was coming along, a young man was going to go, he didn't go to college, he's going to get a job, he's going to go in the army because Fort Bragg is here. Uh, but now you ask young people that question, as James Johnson succinctly put it, they want to know, well, why? I mean, why do I have to go somewhere? This is home, is it? I grew up here. So what parents are doing now with the ADU ordinance is they're building an accessory dwelling unit. They don't technically call them tiny homes in zoning departments. They call them ADUs. They're putting it in the backyard. They're having now where they can just tie into the main public sewer line. They can make a T or a Y off the primary residence. They can get a separate utility to that ADU, a tiny home, so they get their separate bill, and they can put a separate water meter that they can get a separate water bill. So these are some of the new trends, the new developments that we see. I have a friend, alternative housing. He lives on a houseboat. I told him, man, you thinking way out of the box. He says, it's cheaper that he got a boat, a houseboat, and he lives on a lake. Uh, Container homes. You're seeing a variety of homes coming online now. These shipping containers are being modified into living quarters. I think they're innovations born out of necessity. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up so we can have some Q&A time. And I want to kind of go back to that I have to put this plug in for land loss, because any presentation around housing we have to kind of look sometime, because we don't do a really good job, and it usually doesn't end well for us in terms of how we transition from our, mom and daddy's house, home place, to the next generation, or to the child that lived there and kind of took care of them till they passed away. So I want to say this. We have to consider estate planning. Sometimes the most affordable home is the one we inherit. Uh, and we make such a mess of it oftentimes. I'll give you a quick case in point. I know a young lady personally here in the city. She lived with her mother till her mother passed away. She had 3 siblings. She got the house appraised and divided the house by 4 and tried to ask them for a discount. She said it was only a slight discount. She was going to give them quarters, 25%. She had a 25% interest. They rebuffed her offer, went to a petition action in the courts. After they got finished with the legal expenses and the court costs, she bought the house back at a much elevated cost, and the 3 siblings got much less than her original offer. But she wanted that house and had to mortgage it for a much higher cost. And so I see this all the time. And this is born out of, the mother could have probably fixed that problem while she was alive, but she passed away. And we don't often realize that we say we need a will, but just please understand, real estate doesn't pass by a will. It just only tells you where you want your real estate to go. Real estate passes by deed, not by will. You need to execute a deed to get real estate, as entitled to it. It's a big difference, technical difference. So having wills is important. We see prominent people, James Brown, Chadwick Boseman, Aretha Franklin. I printed these. Prince, Bob Marley, Tupac Shakur, and many others who died intestate without wills. And I think Chadwick Boseman, we know who he is, the Black Panther. I think the state of California decided what would happen to his personal assets. So I'm gonna put a pause on it right there. Uh, there's much more that can be said in terms of land loss. Now we have homes. How do we get the tax breaks, the elderly, the veteran, the disabled discounts to minimize our land or real estate taxes? But we could maybe have that on another day. So I'm going to stop and maybe allow some time for Q&A.
Well, number one, thank you for that presentation, as that hit on dang near everything. You touched a lot of bases. I don't know, anybody else want to, I don't see any hands up, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a question on the tip of your tongue. So anyone that has a question for Imam Hamid, please step forward, because I have a couple, but I can wait. I promise
you. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Walaikum assalam.
Yeah, this is Taladin Ukda. I'm here in Washington, D.C. I don't necessarily have questions. I mean, this is collective conversations in terms of the title of our program. I just wanted to echo the thoroughness of just the last 15, 20 minutes or so that you've made this presentation. Because while you were doing so, I was taking notes. And the notes I was taking was in relationship to where I am here in Washington, D.C., and how there are similarities to the things that you were talking about and differences. One of the issues that I have always had with this process of affordable housing, and it's put me in a position where I don't even like to participate in the conversations around this area in particular, because whenever they're considering the median income, even though I am in Washington, D.C. proper, this municipality and the surrounding communities, including Maryland and Virginia, are also included in that median income. So what happens is you take Washington, D.C., where the median income is not that high. But then when you start including Montgomery County, Maryland, which is one of the richest in the country, next to McLean, Virginia, which is where owners of teams live, and the Kennedys have a home there. And I mean, I could go down a list of people who live out in McLean, out in the Potomac area. All of that is inclusive when they are looking at the median income for families, as well as affordability of these homes. They even include Prince George's County, where there's the largest Black population of well-off professionals. So all of that gets included in the mix. Now you're talking about the average home running somewhere in 375 to 450,000 or more. And you do what did you say, like the 30%
Yes.
income ratio from that? I mean, the incomes of those that we're trying to put into these houses or into these homes, it doesn't match. And so the solution that the city claims it has come up with, that many of us in this community are not supporting is they will allow these developers to put in these condo units. Let's say they put in 40, 50 condo units. They call themselves offering maybe 10 units will be at affordable, at this affordable rate. But when you look at it, because of the procuring cost of this, it's not doing anyone any good. And they've even had contracts that I've seen where the unit will remain affordable for a period of time. So this is all developer friendly. And of course, you don't know this, but I do a lot of commercial property development. So, I'm kind of at odds with this, with this process, because I was raised in an environment to want to do to do more for people or provide more opportunities for people to be able to own homes, start businesses, things of that nature. But I really do appreciate this. One of the things, and this is the last point I'll make at this time. One of the things that you initially mentioned that you were right in my head is this whole idea of private equity. That is killing home ownership in America, where these millionaires and billionaires are coming together and buying blocks of homes in cities, and they're controlling the rental market in particular. And the articles that I've read on this, it is insane. And now the flip side is I can't be mad with them because they have more than me and they can afford to do things like this. But I just think that there are better ways to be able, I just think there are better ways to be able to invest your money that comes as a win-win for everyone. But I loved your presentation. I mean, I've got some notes here that I'm going to explore a little further, and I'm going to check this brother out. You mentioned James Johnson.
Yes.
Because that's a reality. That's something that I'm seeing just in the circle of people that I'm familiar with, my friends, my acquaintances. They got children in their 30s that not only have they not left home, they ain't even thinking about leaving.
They're not. Different mindset.
That's right. Different mindset altogether. I'm gonna circle back. I'm gonna let somebody else speak, but I'm gonna circle back to this to the last thing that you mentioned about setting up, wills and trust and your final plans, to keep you out of that court, or if you do have to go into probate court, it'll be the process will be easier for you. So I want to personally thank you. This has been quite enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brother Charlie Abdeen. So let me say one thing. I appreciate he adding to the conversation or the discussion. He mentioned period of affordability. That's kind of like stacking the deck for multifamily townhome, multifamily rental development, because oftentimes they give these monies to them and they give them a 15 or 20, 25 year period of affordability. When that ends, technically they don't have to hold that unit out as an affordable unit.
That's right.
They can in the agreement rental lease and move that up to market rate apartment. Now that's big money, looking out for big money. So, but I wanted to say, if we probably always, because when we grew up, those of us who are, I'm only 61, but even in my generation, your mind was set on getting out, getting a home, but now you don't hear young people or at least sharing that kind of vision and idea. But I'm here to say it's still possible because but you have to be specialized today. You have to look at these programs if you want to hold, especially if you don't make a lot, if you're not a high earner. So there's even programs for people who are teachers, EMTs, firefighters. They have these HUD, Housing and Urban Development has these home ownership initiatives where it's kind of like called the officer next door, uh, the teacher next door program.
Right. Yeah.
So generally speaking about home ownership, people don't know about these programs. They don't have enough information. So I'm in a city where I still do an inspection. It's a visual inspection called housing quality standard. It's the same as a Section 8 inspection. It's the most minimal housing protocol inspection that exists. It's a walkthrough. Everything had to be safe, sanitary, functional. If I cut the water on hot, it need to come out hot. If I cut it on cold, it need to come out. When I turn both of them off, it shouldn't leak. So I did one yesterday. Actually, a local city councilman, Malik Davis, his grandparents are in our community. I've done a couple for him in the last couple of weeks. Now, these people are getting mortgages. They're closing mortgages, and these are first-time home buyers. And these are not the highest income homes in town, but they're homes in this home ownership nonetheless. And they're getting this up to 15,000. North Carolina, locally, like I said, I have to speak generically and generally. Well, they have a home advantage program here out of our North Carolina Housing Finance Agency that comes down to local housing counseling organizations. You get up to 15, and I think even more than that now for down payment assistance, and the gap financing is huge.
Right.
Don't be misled that in certain places where the housing cost has gone up, affordable housing, I've seen it $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in some markets. In other words, these programs still work for houses with those kind of price points on them.
They got a program here, something similar, where they actually, I think, in order to even put in an application for anything, you might have to spend anywhere from 3 to 6 months going to Saturday classes where you actually learn like the rudimentary things that you need to do. For example, you talked about building up your credit, your credit score and getting your debt to income ratio, where it's manageable. People have to be taught that. That's language they've never heard. So they start off with these classes, and when you're done, you get a certificate, and then you move on to the next step. And that next step is to we had a program here. In fact, I think you mentioned it. I did real estate back in the 90s. I think it was HPAP, and they would come. These buyers would already come pre-qualified, and man, I'm telling you, they were picky, trying to find that first home, ostensively for themselves and maybe their children, but it always ended up being, well, where's my mama going to sleep, and where's this, so they had this extended family, and we would spend weeks, if not months, looking for some place that they felt comfortable with, and that was within their price range. But it's work, man. It is work. So thank you. I'm gonna let somebody else step up to the plate.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Brother Bobby, this is Daoud Hassan. How are you doing, sir?
Alhamdulillah, Dawood. I'm doing well, brother. I hope you're well.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Yes, I was quite enjoying the information you were sharing there, and I heard you mention the land loss prevention. And I just want to make a brief comment. Land loss prevention, when we look at the people that in our environment that came up that own land and properties. But in this era now that we're living in, is being lost through taxes and family estate planning, different things that has caused. That has contributed to the homelessness in America. You see a lot of people on the streets now that do have come from people that previously owned property in America. I think we are caught up in this web of chasing the new pump and glitter. That, you know, the big affordable houses they say they bring. And when you look at the income level of the people, they don't make income to justify the dollars that they're trying to invest in. So they go out and get this property. I mean, some slick bankers or investors, well, we can show you how to get in there with 10% or down, but it's $400,000. Over the years, they don't make that kind of income to justify it. So they take on a 15 or 30-year mortgage. That mortgage is a tax with interest. How do we play out? This interest on dollars that they can print more of, and they give them to these big developers, they can have them with a lower interest rate. They pay cheaper money for the money they do development with. So this is, I mean, my comment, I agree. I heard what you were saying in that presentation about the market, but I think we're caught up in this web here of chasing the pump and glitter, and they're robbing us on the back end, the system, and
yeah.
we paying for it, because we, as you described, we have that appetite. We want to grow up. We leave home. I'm tired of being this, you know, like I know you live on the farm. You one of the blessed ones, but grew up on a farm life, you know. But I grew up on the farm life, and then everybody was ready to leave the farm, wanted to leave the farm and go to the city to chase a better dream. So I don't want to get the rampant here, but I enjoyed what you had to say. But I'm looking for a solution to this land loss effort that's going. That I see now primary being. I mean, a lot of people are victim of taxes. Parents tried one that was there, and they passed away. Then there's they don't pay the property tax, and then
we need more education on that.
Yeah, and they go back. Well, that's part of the system that that's happening in this day and time. But thank you very much. I just wanted to make that comment. I think it was, you know, in line with what you were saying, but I see that also that these things that we don't address is the interest rate and that long-term period that they indebted us to. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And that's exactly what our purpose here is here at Graceline. And we acknowledge that most people are lacking adequate financial education. And they're caught up in trying to acquire things. You know, people are always buying stuff they can't afford. I mean, that's the bottom line. I was a waleed for a sister, and she got married during Ramadan. The brother was out of Pennsylvania. He lives up there. She lived down here. And he had signed an agreement with the dowry and what he would do in terms of maintenance. Now he got two households, one up there and one down here. So when he got into after about the third or fourth week, he's contacted the sister to try to vary the maintenance, right? And I feel bad because I should have done a financial thing. Brother, can you afford that? I didn't know he was saying that kind of thing. Can you afford that? I said, it seems to me, brother, you done married outside your league. You know, you married somebody you can't afford to maintain the household on. And I got the word last week that he had informed me that today was his first day of the death.
Mm.
You know, of course, I had a discussion with the sister. You better check out these people. But people are always buying stuff they can't afford. You know, and the way you combat that, we're trying to give an education piece, but we're hoping that people will log in and listen in and do their homework and then make better decisions. You know, in terms of, we're in a society where they're always trying to get you to buy something you can't afford. They know it when they sell it to you, you can't afford it. So we're trying to help the education piece, Brother Dawood, and we hope that at least we can be of service to them people. That we can share the information Imam Hamid shared tonight needs to go far and wide.
Mm-hmm.
But that requires people to seek the knowledge. So anyway, I just want to say that.
Assalamu alaikum. In anticipation of tonight, not only did I have the questions that I put forward earlier, but I was looking at some National Association of Realtor information. And this is probably from 2 months ago, but I was reading it recently. So they did a study, I think, that concluded in either late 2023 or early 2024 on just, housing finance, condition of both renters and mortgagees, all those things vis-a-vis their income, what their payments were, and stuff like that. So I pulled just a few things from that particular article. One of them that struck me was that there are over 17 million renter households in the United States that spend more than half their earnings on rent and utilities. Not 30%, not 35%. Over half of their earnings go toward just paying rent and utilities. And it said what that led to was, even amongst younger people, is that they are struggling to secure enough food to be nutritiously fed. And part of that, they said, is that if you go back and look at numbers from 2009, when I think that was the last time we updated minimum wage in the United States to, I think, $7.25 an hour, which it still is, that since that time, rents themselves, average rent, and of course, this is generic, we're talking all of the US. Some places are worse than others, some places are better. Since 2009, rents have risen 60%. But minimum wage and wage for a lot of workers, and they said 1 in 4 US workers make less than $17 an hour. So there's been this explosion in rental costs and other costs without representative increase in earnings. Another point they made was that 75% of residential land in the United States is zoned exclusively for single family homes. So only 25% then being eligible for multifamily homes, and multifamily homes have their own set of problems. One of the things, Brother Hamid, Imam Hamid mentioned earlier was some of these not in my backyard things. That especially goes for some multifamily housing. And even when you get multifamily housing, permits to build. There are height restrictions and things like that that limit the number of units that you can have. There are some municipalities, they said, that have started, that have changed some of the zoning laws as far as minimum parking requirements to allow there to actually be more space for units instead of a parking garage or, those type things, which are expensive to build and provide absolutely no housing for anybody, not even the homeless. So just, I don't know if you had any comments on any of that, or if that's something that you have also scoped out, and I just, throw that on top of everything else I loaded you up with.
Well, I coined another phrase or expression that it's going to be almost too expensive to live in America if inflationary measures continue or inflation continues. I don't know how we fix this problem. I mean, I travel a little bit I don't know if I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, if I'm in San Antonio, or if I'm in Raleigh, I'm wherever. You're seeing people panhandling. There's a Walmart about a mile from me, and the woods are filled with people living in the woods. They call it now living off the grid, but really Brother Daoud mentioned about how people lost and they're homeless. One of the contributing factors in some markets was, well, I have to say COVID played a factor. And then people also with the house coming out of COVID, the price of housing, single family housing accelerated. The rental people were renting in Fayetteville, North Carolina, were asked to find other places to stay because the house was going to be sold. The house was fixed up and put on the market. The only reason that was done, really, technically, if you really want to peel back the layers of the onion, is because of greed. Because there are houses that I'm aware of, that these houses just a few short years ago was probably on the tax rolls or valued at $65,000 to $100,000. These homes are selling for right around $200,000. I mean, these are older homes, established homes, and established communities. Nothing fancy about the home, nothing fancy about the community. But so there are a variety of things that have contributed to this crisis we have, and it looks, I mean, it looks really dire when you really look at it. And now people will be like you indicated, and when they becoming food insecure, food insufficient. Word to the wise is sufficient. I mean, we better take the economic situation we're in seriously and plan for austerity or hard times or whatever we want to call it.
Yes, the statistics say that 50% of the Fayetteville area in Cumberland County are renters. Home ownership represent, I guess, the other 50%. But that I think that was an increase over the years. I don't know the complete history of it, but currently today, that's what is represented, is that 50% of the people are rentals in the Fayetteville area. They can't afford homes anymore. And the average price of the home is over 200, about 221,000, I think, but it has a high transit area where we got turnaround, where we got military coming in the area. They may be there for a while, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but then divorce happening and stuff. Those homes that was purchased go back on the market again, for various reasons. Yeah, high turnover rate there, but yes, but how do we fix this? Which is a dire problem all over the United States now, homelessness. How do we fix that? And they still, some places have available houses on the market.
Yeah, they're out of range. The price is really is over most people. I mean, I just sat here and did the minimum wage. I didn't know it was $7.25. I knew it was low, but that's you gross, if you had that job, $290 a week times 4, 1160. I mean, that's no money. You take 30% of that. I mean, you're talking 330 some dollars. You can't find a place unless it's a rundown trailer park where you're ducking gunfire every Friday, Saturday night. And actually, those places are $500 and $600 now. They used to be $200 and $300. So we don't have the answers, and we definitely won't find them tonight. But you know, it's something we have to concern ourselves with because we got to live in this country. I travel different places, but this is home for me. I mean, I intend to stay here and live here. So I'm trying to maintain what we have. So it really requires consideration and education.
Yeah, well, thank you for the open discussion, Brother Bobby, because I think this is the area we need to be dipping in. You know, food, clothing, and shelter is a vital part of life. That's what we've been striving for a long time: food, clothing, and shelter.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, that's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I did want to go back around to the manufactured housing question because I've seen countless since I dipped my toe into this about a couple months ago. I've seen countless 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 150, $160,000 manufactured homes that are around 1,500, $1,600, I mean, 1,600 square feet. That as a starter home, those are probably anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000 less than a traditional starter home that we're seeing, excuse me, come on the market, and they can be produced in 6 or 7 weeks. So if you can actually, and I think those are too large to be called ADUs, aren't they? When you're 1,600 square feet.
Well, they set a size limit in most municipalities that you can't exceed, or minimum, or you can't exceed. But let me speak to that because you mentioned it earlier. You spoke to it again. Now, when I was in a housing services manager for the county, I went to a lot of workshops and housing seminars. So so we were competing with single family site built construction with this notion that you have these bazaars and these manufactured housing guys show up and they're touting their product. So I really wanted to see how these places were built. So we have several around southeastern North Carolina. So I've gone to 2 or 3 plants and, you know, they have an assembly line and everything is pretty much stapled together and it works like clockwork. I mean, they'll turn out units in a day in some of these places. A couple of days, they're complete. But here's the problem with those units. We all know how RV automobiles and they depreciate. The problem in most places with the banks in particular is that you will go back and try to get a refinance or a second mortgage or loan on these places and they don't hold value. I was anti-manufactured housing when I was housing services. Some people and our people, you know, the convenience. We still have. I still know some people, extended family. You know, they wanna get a trailer and put it on. We call them trailers down here. We want to get a trailer and put it on a lot. You know, because it's fast, it's quick. Boom! They come in the morning, in the evening. Next day, you're getting a utility company to hook you up. Man, they come furnished sometimes. But once I compared the prices of some of the nicer models that came with some furnishings and setup, those houses begin to get comparable. This was pre-COVID, 10 years ago when I really was active doing this. Those houses were becoming on par with site-built construction. So I did not advocate manufactured housing because I know what happens when you go back to refinance down the road. You're not lenders are not attracted to those. Now, what they tried to do is we created these policies in government again. You can set them up. There's complete neighborhoods that were set up like this. Some home builders stayed away from them because the thing was now take the wheels off, take them off. They call them on frame. On frame. Now they can have a lot of fancy variations. We call them modular homes. They built with a wood foundation versus a metal foundation. But either way, not either way, I have to say with manufactured, what we come with on metal frame, they want you to take the wheels and axles off. They want you to put it on a brick permanent foundation. Those were scratching it to try to get close to something that would hold value over time. But even the components are not as durable. Construction wise, components are not as durable as a site built home. So there's neighborhoods that's built with manufactured housing, and all those home prices are low now, 25, 30 years removed. But it's a way to fix housing shortages. I mean, after disasters, we had a bad hurricane in Western North Carolina. We've had them in Eastern North Carolina. They have their purpose for quick homes after disasters, but as a way to build wealth and generate wealth, I'm not an advocate for manufactured housing.
Let me ask you a question based on your last statement. So there is a movement, and I don't know, I can't tell you how fast it's growing or anything like that, to not view residential housing as an investment, but to view residential housing as a commodity, as something that you have to have, like food and clothing. It's just a commodity, and you have X number of dollars that you earn, and of that X number of dollars, a certain percentage of it goes for, like we do the 50-30-20 plan at Graceline Community, that maybe fits into that 50% of things that you're going to pay for out of your earnings. And you make a decision that you're only going to use maybe 30% of your earnings toward housing, that you're not looking for the payoff somewhere down the road, but you need housing. So you're going to spend the money every month to have housing, just like you need food and electricity and water, so on and so forth. What do you think about that?
So you're like going to buy a car, and you're really not concerned with the price of the car. You're just concerned whether it fits the payment in the budget, because you need transportation.
You got to get from point A to point B. Yes.
So that's going to work for a lot of people. I say, even though I'm not an advocate for it, it works for some people. It works for a lot of people, but those people are not people that are traditionally embarking on a venture to create multi-generational wealth. They need a place to live. They need a place to stay. So every situation is going to be different based on the goals, aspirations of the person who's going to buy it, live there. I mean, think about it. ADUs are going to get really popular here. People are going to start building accessory dwelling units in their backyards, if not for their children, to rent it so they can have some money that they can live off and pay the expenses on the primary home. You see this happening with tiny homes. So
I'm trying to talk. I'm going to talk my boys into building one for me, so they don't put me at Shady Acres when I get old.
And that's it becomes the in-law suite or the grandparents' suite of lodging. And James Johnson, by the way, also speaks of that. He calls it the silver tsunami, where the elderly now, and we don't like to put if we can avoid it, if they don't need medical level care, we try to keep our seniors at home. So yeah, I mean, they may say that fits when I get older. Hey man, just move me back there. You know, I'm independent. I'm a baby boomer. I still move around. I exercise. So everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. But as houses a commodity, I mean, it's something you got to have. Commodity you need. So everybody's situation may be slightly different based on their personal aspirations and objectives and money.
Yeah, that money thing always factors in. Somehow it sneaks in the tent.
Yes, let me inject here. You know, I see these tiny houses. Yeah, they're coming on the market fast, very fast. I get something from someone every day about a tiny house projects that they got put up a house in them maybe 2 or 3 days out of a day. But my question is, and a couple of weeks ago, I was up in the North Carolina mountains. I see the damage that was done over there, tremendous. There's still a lot of damage lingering. But I was told that the Quakers came down there, and in 10 days, they built about 30 mini houses from stick built owners just to help the people out over there in that area. My question is, as we move further to this commercial thing, they're taking away the skill banks. Custom built houses provided a lot of skill for people to learn, and also provided work ethics for youth growing up, so I think that is a problem when we all flock to these tiny houses and give up the skill of building and creating houses in our communities ourselves. I think that's taking a robbing us there. So we got this skill bank now. Nobody wants to do any labor, don't want to do the plumbing, don't want to do the brickwork, don't want to do the carpentry work, They'd rather pay someone else for that skill set to do that. And we don't have a bank like we years ago that when I remember when people wanted the carpenters or the brick mason or the plasters, they used to come in the Black community looking for those skills. Mm-hmm. But now today, we go out and look for someone else to do it and pay enormous prices for those services. I just wanted to add to that comment there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a subject for another day, but we've already lost it, brother. I used to travel southeastern North Carolina. I was a contract, construction inspector with the regional office out of Greensboro, the HUD office. There are projects called 811, special needs, and 202 is elderly housing. These projects average around $3 to $6 million. So I would go twice a month, give a report on the progress and the supervising architects' progress on managing and what I noticed on those jobs, and I did Davis-Bacon, Lays, and Weber interviews. This was years ago. Then it's more saturated now. Mostly Latinos was framing, doing all the drywall on these projects now. They took these skills out of the school, but I have friends who are electricians and plumbers, and they can't find young men to come into those fields. And if a young man had vision and can use his hands and became a welder today, he'd make an awesome living being a welder. In fact, I'm thinking about
$150,000 a year is what they're paying welders in Dallas, Texas.
We should tell all our young men to go to the tech school and get into welding.
Right. So I know you said correctly, it's a subject for another show, but both the University of California at Berkeley and the University of California at Los Angeles have added skilled labor classes in carpentry, plumbing, becoming an electrician, and there's one other I can't think of right now, as part of their curriculum. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is from my son's a professor in San Diego at Cal State San Marcos, who they have now started in, I think next fall, they will have both carpentry and welding at the University of Cal State San Marcos. So this is something that's going to, I know, I just get this through him. I'm sure it's going to go through other states as well. It has been noted by a lot of people, and doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Communist, Green Party, doesn't matter, that there's a lack of skilled labor in the United States.
Yeah.
All of the tech companies, the ones especially that testified last week, in front of Congress, Sam Altman of OpenAI in particular, said, we need more electricians than we can give you a number for. So I think at both the community college level and ultimately across the board, even at the elite college level, probably outside of the Ivy League, I can't see them doing it. But outside of the Ivy League, you're probably going to see these skilled laborer type programs that might run 8 weeks in the fall, 8 weeks in the spring, get a certificate that next summer type of thing, bypass some of the issues that African Americans had in the past. Was these labor unions that are white run that give you these designations? They were very slow to give a master electrician's designation to an African American.
Right.
They were journeymen forever, right? And they would actually be on the job doing the master electrician's work, telling supposed master electricians how to do it, but they were still paid journeyman wages. So there is a movement to kind of bypass some of that because it has slowed down the numbers that we have and the income that people could ask for. And then, like I said, we got to educate our young men that these are six-figure jobs. Plumbing is a six-figure income. Being an electrician is a six-figure income. If you're a skilled carpenter, you can make six figures for the next 35, 40 years. They need to understand that. It gives them some swag. I don't know how we sell the swag of that, but we have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's true. I have a couple of Caucasian clients that have skilled, and they making good money. You understand? And Brother Hamid can tell you it's hard to find African Americans in certain areas right now. They just not gravitating. Then if you find them, then we need to support them. But it's hard to find. And the current business owners are not hiring African Americans. And then you take the Hispanics, I mean, they ain't dumb. I used to get Hispanics to do work for me. And man, they didn't charge much money. They got the job done. Then I called the Hispanic guy to do some work for me, and man, he didn't give me no kind of break. So I found one of my clients had a cousin that married a Caucasian. They moved here from Washington State, and he told me how much he was going to charge me to do it. Heck, I feel bad, but I had to make him an honorary brother so I can hire him. You know, he did a job. I said, leave my honorary brother alone. Man. Quit messing with him. He did a good job. Good job. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And again, that takes education. That takes all kind of stuff, that we had to try to overcome in that regard.
Brothers, I'm going to have to segue into something else here.
Yes. We appreciate you. Imam Hamid, this has been wonderful. We're probably going to have you back sometime in the summer.
Yes.
And, get even a little bit more in depth if you can make some time for us, but we appreciate tonight.
Yes, I'd love to. And just Adam, just keep me posted.
Yes, sir.
I have to make some checks now on this time and even early sometime on my mom. So I have to obviously, and we need to touch bases on that land loss prevention too.
Yes. Look forward to it.
All right, I'm gonna give y'all the greetings of Assalamu alaikum, and we look forward to gather again on this forum. Inshallah. All right.
So Adam,
yes, sir.
I don't know if Imam Hamid was a person that you had mentioned who also was interested in the trade school thing of the skilled labor or skilled trades of developing schools for that.
No, no, he was. I didn't mention that, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. Definitely, it's
Yeah.
not something you said.
Okay. Yeah, because that's definitely something that's in my mind to do
Gotcha.
something along those lines. Because I actually think we can attract those young people. I mean, they're doing nothing.
True that.
Hanging on the corner afternoon when they're seniors in high school and they have those half days here in Dallas. They are all over downtown, just hanging on the corner, laughing, joking, running around.
Right.
No matter, I don't know what kind of mischief they're getting into, but they're having a good time that's not focused.
Right.
So, but hey, thanks everybody for coming out tonight, for coming to the show. I think this was fantastic. Adam, thank you for bringing Imam Hamid on, and it's going to be a tough show to top next week, but away we go. And we're going to ask you, Adam, to close us out with the dua.
Okay. I'll do that. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Oh, Allah, give us the best benefits in this life and the best benefits of life to come, and save us from the Allah, from the torment of the hellfire. Ameen.
Ameen. All right, everyone, go have a wonderful evening, what's left of it, and be safe and make dua for everybody.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam,
Assalamu.
Right show. Assalamu alaikum.
sister.